Hello, it's Andy and it's late in the evening and I'm going to go for a little walk down through a Cornish moorland valley, and it will follow a river down to the little hamlet that sits at the bottom. So I'm going to make my way down through and I'm going to take you for a 10-15 minute little stroll through a Cornish valley. So I hope you enjoy this. So I'm starting on a road and I can look down into the valley from here, and you can see it's going to drop severely down into where the river is, but it's surrounded on all sides by high valley woodlands and field systems which drop back into it. So I will be starting on this little lane and I'm just going to make my way down through, and light is beginning to fade, so that is going to affect the quality of the film, but it also adds a little bit of charm. And from here I'm looking up into some typical moorland scenery, or lowland moorland scenery, with granite covered with moss and hazel and beech trying to eke out a living in amongst the poor ground and the rocks. So I'm coming down and you can already see the sign in the distance which says public footpath, and we will be turning left and heading down onto the public footpath. The sign clearly says public footpath, and you drop in off the road and it's evident that this is well walked, and you drop into like a little copse or woodland, and it runs between a field and a farm. And as light is fading, it adds a little bit of charm to this, and you can clearly see there's no reason to get lost because it's a well trodden path. Being on the edge of Bodmin Moor, there's lots of granite stones covered with moss, and that's just something you've got to negotiate yourself around. The idea is not to trip over them, and all the trees are heavily covered in moss, and there's a real lush carpet of plants below them. When you get to the bottom, you break out into a little sty that comes out into a field. And this field is used for grazing livestock and horses, so you know you have to be careful, and on top of that, that is electric fence, so just be extremely cautious what you touch. Right, I'm making my way now, tracking along the actual electric fence down to a gateway, and it is clearly marked which direction you need to go. So, as I said, there's no great urgency to worry about where you're going. It's clearly marked for you. And from here, you can clearly see we're already starting to drop down into the valley. And I'll swing you around. And you can clearly see we've already started the descent. I should be making my way to that gate and into the next field system. Now, as I come out of that gate, I'm clearly into some fields, and it's extremely steep on both sides. And if you look further up, you can clearly see that this is an extremely steep valley, and it's beginning to get, shall we say, to the point where the gradients, when you walk up, would give you a little bit of a sweat. But for us, we are heading downhill, so we do not have any of those concerns. And I'll make my way now, as indicated by the arrows, and the arrow I can clearly see in the distance. You can clearly see where we got to go, and in fact there's an arrow on a gatepost there. All around me is bird song. It is the last chorus as the light goes. I've just seen a load of rabbits go scampering back to their burrows, probably surprised somebody's out walking just before last light. But I need to be heading over here to this corner of this little woodland. The grass is really lush, has almost like electric look about it. It's been nourished by the rains we've just had and the warm sunny days as well. Spring is well underway. All the flowers are starting to really give it their all their best, and it won't be long before the trees are a full canopy of leaves as well. Right, I've just made the corner of the woodland and there's a nicely maintained sty. I'm going to negotiate that, and you can clearly see where I've got to go. And yet again, I'm now going to be descending into woodland. I can just hear the very faint beginnings of water, or the sound of water, so I know that river is not too far away. Yet again, this path is easy to follow. There's a lot of downed trees, wind damage. We've had a lot of storms this winter, severe ones. And a lot of these old trees have succumbed. This one, all the, as you can see, root system's just given way. And it hasn't helped all the ivy and other parasitic plants on it that have taken its toll. Just too much weight for an old tree to do the winter. But yet again, I'm going to carry on. And like I said, it's easily followable. And I'll just bring you around looking back up. And as you can see, we are dropping now, dropping faster. And the floor, yet again, granite. We are on the edge of Bodmin Moor. And as with Dartmoor, Bodmin Moor is famed for its granite. So you can actually hear the river now. It's becoming a little bit more sheltered from the wind, and yet again another sign pointing us in the direction we need to go. And this is our first look at man management in this part of the forest on the right hand side. Clearly the left hand side, that does not look like it sees any management at all, and indeed is looking extremely ancient. But I can hear that river. I'm also losing light. I'm in no hurry. I do know that I do have enough time to do this. And this path is weaving around tree roots, granite boulders, and like I said, as I come here, you can clearly see trees have been taken and the replanting process has begun. I've now got a vantage point of the river, and I can see it gently meandering down through this little gorge. It is doable to get down there, but it is a steep enough drop, as you can see, to warrant not thinking about it just at this particular point. I yet again have to make my way continually downwards along this track. Now the ground in places means here that you do have to negotiate these bits of granite boulder. There's nothing, you can't escape them, they are just here. Yet again, birds really singing. And it's that nice soothing sound of water as I walk down here. The water is actually picking up pace as well. And there's the beginnings of some very little bits of, not waterfalls or rapids, it's just the water's quickening up as it races over steeper parts of the boulders. And as you can see, it's making its way down through the woodland. The noise of the water is getting decidedly louder, and it's getting steeper for the water course. And as you can see, there's a nice little tree there which would make a nice bridge across to the other side if you had time and the inclination to try it. But you can see it also disappears into some dense undergrowth there as also. A vast quantity of trees have been actually taken, but as you can see, they are there for commercial purposes, and indeed the replanting, like I said, has begun. So in another 50 years, 60 years, these two will probably be harvested. And it's in stark contrast to what lies on the opposite side. Ancient Cornish woodland. That is a long way down, and as you can hear and see, the water really is now coming down with a bit of force. It's getting a lot steeper here now. This is the public footpath, but it also serves as the forestry access road. So you have to bear in mind that obviously this is a managed woodland, so it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to see machinery on this part of the footpath. That's just something that has to be made aware, because you know, this obviously is a working woodland or forest. But I'm being very careful if I walk down here because there's tree roots. The mud is a bit slippery. I can actually see some mountain bike tracks, so I'm guessing it's been used for that, mountain biking down here as well. But the air is really heavy from these pine trees. You can actually smell, you know, you can smell the scent. It's heavy in the air. Just walking along, you can see the damage. That's wind damage. All this here, it's all been taken down. You can see loads literally came down, and you can see a ginormous granite rock there. So this is pretty hard ground, and it's probably why actually this is still left with a bit of native around it, because it's just unworkable. Looking back up the track, you can still actually hear the odd birds singing, but you can see the light just going over the hills, and it is time to start thinking about leaving the woods, but I still have a little way to go yet. I'm in no hurry, I'm enjoying this, and there's no wind down here. It's relatively warm. I'm doing this in a hoodie, and yeah, I'm just enjoying being out in the woods. Yet again, clearly marked, and I'm going to make my way on down through the valley. This part of the track is making for some really nice easy walking and pleasant walking. It's opening up now. I can see another commercial forest in the distance on the other side of the valley, and I'm just passing a load of commercial trees now. Now that is looking totally dark in there now, because it's so dense. No sunlight, or the last bits of sunlight really aren't getting to the forest floor in there now. Looking back up, I'm bringing you around to the hillside on the opposite side, and down here you can actually see the river. I've moved a little bit further away from the river here now, and I hope we get to get a bit closer to it in a moment. As I'm coming out of the wood line, there's more agricultural fields, and just across the way there's a donkey happily grazing. Now, you don't really see that many donkeys anymore. They're more kept as pets, or well, pretty much that's what they're kept for in this country. I do know they're worked abroad, but yeah, he's just happily grazing away, minding his own business. But I'm going to be heading down here again. Now, as I'm obviously reaching the bottom of the valley, there's been a lot of planting here, and this is all of native varieties, and it looks like they've tried to keep it native by the riverside. So these here in another 20 to 30 years time will be quite spectacular, and there will be a lot of wildlife living in them by that point. I've now made it to the end of this little evening stroll walk. I've come to the gate, and I know this path takes me out to the road, and you can actually cross it and go into another footpath. But for me, this is the end of my little evening stroll. Most people would have just finished work and had their tea and be settling for the evening. But I thought I'd come out for a nice little walk, and it's been very pleasant too. And well, pretty much like most footpaths, they do end up going somewhere, and this is no exception. I've just made my way to another lane, and if I so wished, I could take that footpath. I've just crossed over, and I'm just going to walk down the riverbank, and you can see the difference in the speed of water now. It's absolutely slowed down to a snail's pace as we got to the bottom of the valley, but it's still pleasant. And there's an old bridge. And that road there will be taking me home. And the water continues to make its way down to join a bigger river. Just out of curiosity, I'm just going to walk this last little bit of track. I don't have time to complete it, because as you can see, that sky, it's got those pinks and reds and blues that tell you you literally do have only minutes before it goes dark. The holly trees are still looking really vibrant. They are an evergreen, they're there all year round, but we're still waiting for the majority of leaves to come out. So they still stand out, they still really are vibrant. They will lose that place in the woodland once the leaves come out, but at the moment they're still holding their own. Well, I've just come down here to see where the river did actually go, just a few hundred yards down on the opposite side, but I'm not going to follow it anymore. It is time for me to leave this little bit of a footpath for another day. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little evening stroll down through a Cornish woodland valley. Now, it's nothing more or nothing special than I do on a regular basis, but it's always good to share it with people, and if nothing else, I find it de-stresses me, it makes me feel more relaxed, and indeed it's a pleasant way to end the day. And I hope by just watching this that you get a sense of that and you can feel some sort of calm from it yourself. But I'm now going to push on home, and yeah, this is Andy from Folklore Hiking Sticks. All the best.